What's up, world? This is Salim with Flip for Figs, and today I'll be unboxing and reviewing the Hot Toys General Grievous from Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. He's finally here, and I'll be taking a look at sculpt and detail, accessories, and overall value for the money to see if this figure will be a fine addition to your collection. Let's do it.
Flip for Figs.
When I flip, you flip, we flip.
Alright, so here's everything that comes in the box. He comes with a ton of stuff. So obviously here you have the figure. You also have the Magna Staff here, which is really nice. It's a very cool design. I wish there was a way to light it up, but instead you just kind of get these electrified accessories and you kind of just fit it around there to give it that electrified look. So it looks really good. You get 4 different lightsabers, and I was happy to see that each one of them is completely different. And you get one without USB capabilities, and then one with USB capabilities. And look at all those USB lightsabers. Makes you wonder how Hot Toys didn't include a second USB lightsaber with Anakin Artisan, but that's another story. You get this blaster, which actually seems really tiny for such a big figure. I was actually really surprised by how small it is. It's even smaller than a standard like Stormtrooper or Clone Trooper gun. So it may be screen accurate, but it just seems kind of silly how small it is. You get a swooshing effect blades, only 2, not 4, but you do get 4 standard blades as well. So you can kind of, hopefully I'll be able to, make it look like he's doing that helicopter move where he's spinning him up. You get these bigger hands, which, are meant to go on the figure when his arms are connected. And it comes already with some in there. Now, all of these can be separated. So that way, if you're separating the arms, you have these hands which are completely posable. However, when it comes to holding the lightsaber hilts, they'll likely slip if you're using these. So you do have to use the ones that are already gripped right there. And we'll talk about that in a second. But all of these hands do separate. And so with these hands, they can also be connected. So you'll see here they slot together. And these are already gripped, and these are what you'll want to use for lightsabers as well as the Magna Staff, because if you just try to use the articulated fingers, they'll just slip down. You also get these 2 forearms, so that way you can have Obi-Wan cut his wrists off, and they have some lightsaber damage there. And these are the elbow joints that you need to swap out in order to put these cut forearms in. So we'll look at that soon. You get the second battle damage face sculpt, which has the same brown stained scratches here, but it also has a lot of damage here on this eye. For the life of me, I can't figure out why they didn't just give this damaged one and a clean one. It seems like such an easy solution that would have made everyone, including myself, extra happy, but they didn't. And then you get the base, which, you know, has these burn marks on the side for when he's kind of, you know, spinning the lightsabers and slashing the ground. The stand, which it's actually the first time I've seen this, where, because even with heavy, tall figures like Venom, you just have the post, but this one kind of hooks onto the back of the base. And then you get this cape, which is completely wired and also has slots for the different lightsabers, which is a nice touch. And it can clip right here at the collar. But yeah, completely wired. Love the red and black design on it, and this kind of charcoal gray on the back. All right, first impressions out of the box. This thing is huge and it's heavy. Um, the the sculpt work is really nice. I mean, if you look at all of these different wires, and everywhere you look, there's something new to look at, and every single piece of him is weathered. Probably a little too much. I mean, obviously, the prototype, these weren't like Dookie Brown. I'm not really understanding why they went this route with the scuffs, especially since we get a battle damaged faceplate. It would have made more sense to make this one a clean face sculpt and then have the other one. It is quite distracting. I didn't want to be upset about it. I saw a lot of people complaining about it right off the bat, but I was like, no, maybe it's not that bad in person. It's pretty dark. In fact, I already started looking up to see if there's ways to kind of lighten it up. I personally don't feel confident enough to do it, but I'm hoping someone out there is, because if it was up to me, it would not be brown. The scratches are fine. Let them be black like this one right here, but I don't see the reason why it has to be brown. So yeah. Anyways, now that that's out of the way, you have the chest box here. These plates can move out of the way, not too much. In fact, that's one thing to keep in mind when you start handling this figure is a lot of parts move. And so it makes you, you have to be kind of weary about how far you should push it. This was one time where I did kind of look at the instructions to make sure that everything can be moved the way I want it to without, making sure I'm not breaking anything, because it does feel fragile even though it's hefty. But inside the chest, you can kind of see the heart in there, which is a nice touch. These shoulder pieces right here, they can detach, as you can see here, and they just pop back on. In fact, the instructions say that you are supposed to remove those whenever you're going to split the arm, but I'm able to split the arm without doing that. These fins on the side of his head can move, which is cool. And then over here on the neck, if you move this out of the way, you can bring the neck down and forward, and you could see that those wires, move, and everything kind of moves around when you do that, which is cool. The head itself, you can turn it side to side. It's a little bit stiff, and you can move the head up and down as well. But if you want to move the neck, you have to kind of do it this way. And in terms of the arms, so the arms are on a ball joint, so you can go pretty, you can turn this way. You see there's two ball joints because they're individual arms that connect together, and you can get a good amount of rotation there. And then they bend at the elbow as well. And this kind of reminded me of the Droideka, the way that the pistons move. You get some similar action here when you move the elbow. This is where you can kind of separate the arms here. So you'll see here that the arms can separate, and to clip them back in, there is just this little prong right here, so you can move them and clip them in together. And the forearms can slide up and down, so that way you can have some, well, actually, this one doesn't appear to slide up and down, only this one does. But you'll need to match them when you want to reconnect them. And so same on the other side. And yeah, now let's look at the legs. All right, so for the legs, they are on this massive ball joint right here, and obviously they're heavy. It's the legs are die cast in many places, and one thing that's really bugging me, and I may have to reach out to Toys Assemble where I got it from, is this piece keeps falling off. And if you look here, it looks like it's meant to slot in right there. So I don't think it's broken. But when I do slot it in, and it's basically, you see it on the other side right here. When I do slot it in, this leg interferes with it and it keeps falling off. And it's really bugging me because every time I want to pose it, I have to kind of fuss with that a little bit. But then the legs, they can rotate, as you can see right there. But the legs are die cast. They're really heavy. They got some really nice, sculpt and detail work there. And then the knee joints, I feel like I need some WD-40 because it takes a lot of effort to kind of move them. But you can see there that you can get a full like 90-degree angle with the legs. So you can definitely get some motion there. And then also with the foot, I guess this would be considered the ankle. You can move it up and down, and the foot as well. You can move it. Something to be mindful of is that these toes are not articulated, so don't push them too hard because they will break. So yeah, you can actually get a lot of articulation out of the legs. And he tends to be hunched over in the movie, so you can definitely achieve that look. It's a lot harder to get him to stand up when he's standing completely upright. So you do have to kind of get creative with bending the legs to get him to be able to stand on his own. All right, for the forearms, it's obvious that you're able to remove them. I just can't figure out for the life of me how to do it. I tried pulling and I really don't want to break it. I can show you in the instructions. They just say remove the forearm and they make it seem like it just pops out, but I can't get it out, and I don't want to break it, so I'm not going to fuss. And that's a shame because I really wanted to test out these forearms. I mistakenly said earlier that these parts were like the elbow joint to connect this forearm. It's not. You do just have the option of having like the arm end at this piece. So, theoretically that joint connects in there, or you can do this. So it's one or the other. They don't work together in tandem. And they both are supposed to connect here. But like I said, I can't figure out how to undo that. I was looking to see if there's any kind of notch or button. I saw this, and that's, I believe, is just a magnet because it has it on the other side too, even though the other side you can't remove the forearm. But yeah, I don't see any way to remove that. So unfortunately, I won't be able to show you how he looks like with the arms cut off because I don't want to risk breaking it. If I did break it, that would be obviously a me problem, not like a figure problem. And like I said, the instructions don't give any specific detail. So hopefully, when some maybe more experienced reviewers, post something, I'll be able to figure it out. But for the sake of this review, we're stuck with these forearms. Sorry, folks. Also, earlier I mentioned that the hip piece on one side kept falling out. Well, when trying to move the legs, this entire portion fell out here, and I can kind of just slot it back in there, but you could tell by the paint that this is not supposed to come off, and it did already. Now the instructions say to be careful when moving the legs so you don't damage this part, but obviously all I did was move them in the directions and rotations as they're supposed to. So now I'm starting to worry that maybe mine is a faulty figure because first this piece fell out, but this one was secure and now they both fell out. So for the rest of the review, I'll be posing him without these pieces just because they keep falling out. So already kind of a little disappointed by some of these issues that I'm having. All right, to swap the face sculpt, it's really easy. It just comes right off. You can move the head up a little bit, and then this is how you get access to the eyes. So you could just move them like that. This figure does not include the little tool to move it, and that's because, as you can see, it's really easy to access them, so you could just move them with the hands. And you can just easily pop the other face sculpt on. And yeah, there's the other face sculpt. It also has moving eyes, and you could still move these fins with the new face sculpt attached. I don't like this face sculpt. It's a little too much damage for my case, or for my taste. I really can't for the life of me understand why they didn't just give us these brown scuffs on the battle damaged one and leave the other one clean. But because I mean, in my opinion, these are both battle damaged. But yeah. So to attach the cape, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to pull this back, and you're going to make sure that you lift the neck up all the way, and then you're going to kind of fit the cape underneath that neck piece and wrap it around, and then you'll clip it. So yeah, he looks awesome with the cape on. Yeah, I think displaying with him with the cape on is the way to go. The cape is wired in every portion of it, so you can get some really fun dynamic poses out of it, which is great. My favorite part of the cape is the fact that you can put these lightsabers here in the pockets. They're a little tough to get in there, as you would expect. I don't think it matters which ones go in where, but as you can see, the different like design elements of the lightsabers make them a little tricky to get in, but I'm sure if you fuss with it enough, you could get them in. All right, so for the hands, you have several options, and that's because you have, if you kind of connect the arms together, then you can see that, one second, let's see. So if you connect the arms together, you could see that you have two wrist pegs there, and then that's when you can use this hand, which pops right in. Or if you're displaying the arms individually, then you can use one of these single arm right here. And these are what you're going to use if you want to hold the lightsabers. So when messing with the hands, just be mindful that these do not separate. It's one single hand piece that is, the fingers are articulated. Not to be confused with this one, which is also articulated, but these do separate. So there he is holding the staff. If you try to put the staff in just the hand that's all one piece, uh, these fingers, even when they're closed, is not strong enough. So what you have to do is you have to use the two separate hands that are the gripping hands for like the lightsaber, and connect them together and put them in the arm to be able to hold the weight of the staff. There he is with the blaster, and it looks more like a pistol because of how small it is. And I have to go back and watch the movie to see if the pistols or the blasters he was handling were that small, but I'm assuming it's accurate. But it just feels like he should have a bigger blaster. But since the fingers are articulated, you can actually put it through, the trigger, which is nice. So yeah, that's with the gun. When plugging in the USB lightsabers, be aware that the hilts are actually color coded. I thought they were just like white lights, because the first time I plugged these in, I managed to get them all right. But this time I noticed that it was looking off, and it's because there's two hilts specifically for green and for blue. So if you put the wrong blades, then it looks funky. So you may want to just plug them in so you know which one is which. There he is with the USB lightsabers, and I gotta say the colors are really vivid. I know not everyone is a fan of Hot Toys lightsabers, but now that I have some fusion reactors ones and I can compare it, I really don't think that these are that bad. I mean, obviously it's a little more cumbersome because you have the junction box, but I mean, if you think about it, it's more convenient because you could hook up four lightsabers into a unit and just have one USB cord. Whereas if these were all like, CCFL lightsabers, you would have four separate USB cords to plug into like a strip or something like that. So I actually really like Hot Toys' USB lightsabers. I wish the older figures got them. Those are really the only ones that I get fusion reactors for. Otherwise, any new figure that has USB lightsabers, even like Darth Maul back there, I just keep the standard ones because I really don't see that it's worth, $100 or $120 a pop. But Grievous looks great. I love that we got four separate USB light up lightsabers, and I think the fact that the hilts themselves are color coded, it really makes the colors even more vivid. I don't know if it's just an issue with mine since I'm having so many issues, but the wrist joint is just not strong enough to hold the swooshing effect blade. As you can see, it just doesn't work. And the promo images have kind of him, doing the swooshing effect at the top, but yeah, it just doesn't work for me. My cape completely separated somehow. It doesn't look like a rip. I don't know if it was like glue holding it together, but now the wired portion is completely separated from the front of it. So yeah, that's definitely not supposed to happen. And just so you can get an idea of the size, here he is with some of the other tallest figures. There he is with the Hulk. You could see even if the Hulk didn't have his arms up, he would still be a lot taller than Grievous. And this is Grievous straight up and down without a bend in his knees. There he is with Chewbacca. I would have put Vader with him, but Vader's all hooked up, and yeah, I wasn't going to do all that right now. But very tall figure, and I think if you wanted to go like movie style, you would have him hunched over, which I may or may not do when I pose him. I'll definitely give him some bend in the knee, but not completely hunched over, but also not completely straight up and down, but definitely still a very tall figure. Alrighty, so let's talk value for the money. So this figure on sideshow.com retails for 370 US dollars, and I remember thinking that was actually a really low price considering some standard Hot Toys figures, maybe not standard, but like maybe deluxe figures that don't have die cast and don't have all of these, accessories sometimes go for 400 or $380. So I remember thinking that was a really good deal for Grievous. And now, if you want to get him from Hong Kong now, like I did, you're going to be paying more between obviously the upcharge of being able to get it directly from Hong Kong. Resellers like Toys Assemble and Pop Collectibles are selling it for more than, the sideshow price. On top of that, you're going to be paying the shipping, which is already expensive, as well as tariffs. So, I ended up paying probably an additional $230 more to get this figure straight from Hong Kong. And I remember thinking, you know what, it's worth it to me because obviously I don't know how long it's going to take for Sideshow to get it, and I wanted to get it as soon as possible. I've been looking forward to this figure. This is actually the figure that made me decide to finally jump into Star Wars Hot Toys in the first place. So as soon as he became available, I went ahead and jumped on it. And so now my personal copy is plagued with issues, as you saw, but I'm going to put those aside because I'm assuming that's not the norm. I'm hoping that's not the norm. And so if we put aside the issues that I personally have, then I think it's an incredible value if you're buying it at retail. Again, there's so many different, like the sculpt and detail work is phenomenal. There's so many different intricate, details and moving parts. And there's obviously die cast. It's a very heavy figure. You're getting 4 USB lightsabers. And so, the rest of the accessories are really great too. The functionality of the way that the arms separate is really ingenious. I will say that the figure is a lot more fragile than I thought it would be. I remember when I got the Droideka, I thought that would be fragile because it looked fragile. And I mean, I could move that in all different ways, shapes, or forms. and not have any issues. With this figure, maybe again, it's just because my copy has issues, but anytime I moved a joint, something popped off. And so I don't know if that's the norm. I'm assuming it's not. And then also my cape separated too. So in theory, if the figure, comes out of the box the way that it's supposed to without these issues, then it's a phenomenal value. There's, compared to like artisan figures or any other deluxe figures, I feel like this is a very deluxe figure, even though it's not labeled as such. And so if you're buying it at retail, you're going to be really happy with your purchase if you don't have any issues with it. If you're getting it from Hong Kong and paying extra for it, that all depends on how eager you are to have it. Now that I have it in person, do I regret, not going with Sideshow and paying an extra 200 or so dollars to get it straight from Hong Kong? Yes, but that's only because mine has issues. I'm hoping I'll be able to resolve them with the place I bought it from, which is Toys Assemble. They're always really great. But, I just feel like, wow, I paid all this extra money to have an imperfect figure. And so it's kind of skewing my perspective. And the same thing happened with my Commander Cody, review 2.0. I had issues right out of the box. So it kind of, it ruined my initial impressions of the figure. Sideshow ended up sending me a new figure without those issues. And that, is a great figure. But similarly here, because I didn't pay retail price, because I paid more and I paid tariffs to have it come imperfectly, it's kind of a bummer. And so it's also going to probably skew the score that I give it. Alrighty, so if I had to give this figure a score out of 10, again, my perspective is skewed because I had not one, not two, but three major issues. The first major issue was that hip joint. One piece of it originally fell off and I couldn't keep it attached. And anytime I moved the leg even a little bit, it would pop off. And the motion that I put the leg in was the same amount of motion that it shows you could do in the instruction booklet. In fact, I saw somebody on Instagram who put Grievous in that spider, kind of pose, which I was going to do. But after everything started popping off, I was like, you know what? Let me not push it to the limit because I don't want, Toys Assemble or whoever to think that, oh, it's because I pushed the figure to the limit. That's why it broke. Because in all honesty, I didn't do any of that. It just trying to pose it out of the box, that piece fell off. The other issue is the cape. The cape completely separated. I mean, it's wired, so you should be able to move it around and stuff, and it completely separated. And what's weird is it's like a clean separation. So the cape is the next issue that I'm having. The third issue, and this might be user error, so don't hold it against me if it's just I'm not as figure savvy as I thought I was. But the other issue is the forearms. I don't see any way to remove the forearm to swap it with the one that's cut off by the lightsaber. There's no button. There's no like lever or anything, and I really tried tugging at it. In fact, at one point I tugged harder than I probably should have. And it still wouldn't come out, and the instructions don't help. They just said remove the forearm. And so this is the first time I have a figure where I wasn't able to test out all of the features of it. And again, I don't know if it's user error. Maybe when some other reviews come out, I'll feel like a dunce and I'll say, oh man, that's all I had to do. I'm hoping that's the case, but it could also be that since my figure is plagued with these issues, it also doesn't have the ability to remove the forearm. Another issue was the fact that with the swooshing effect blades, the wrists are not strong enough to hold them up. So in the promo pictures, he has the two blades facing up that are using the swooshing effect blades, and I could not get them to stay. As you saw, the wrist is just not strong enough. So again, I don't know if that's specific to my copy or if that's an issue with it. And so unfortunately, if it was just one issue and I knew that I would resolve it, then that would be one thing. But so many issues altogether, it really just skews my perspective on this figure. I think that if it came out of the box perfect, then it would probably be a 10 out of 10 or maybe a 9.5 out of 10, because it does bug me that those scratches on the face are that brown color. It does look gross. It's totally unnecessary. We already have a battle damaged face sculpt. Why not have one clean face sculpt, one battle damage face sculpt? Now, granted, in the prototype, the standard face sculpt did have the scuffs on it, but they didn't have that nasty brown color on them. So I think if the figure was perfect out of the box and everything worked as it should, and I could even, get some more dynamic poses in there, then I would have given it a 9.5 out of 10. As it stands, I have to give it like a 7 out of 10, which is really unfortunate because it looks fantastic. But again, I had pieces falling off. I have a cape that's separating. I have wrist joints that are not strong enough to hold up the swooshing effect blades. And then you add the dookie stain on the faceplate on top of that, and it's just it becomes a 7 out of 10, which I still think is strong. It's obviously, I guess it's a C average, but it's a bummer because this was my most anticipated Hot Toys figure. Maybe not as much as Darth Maul 2.0 was, but still, this is the figure that when I saw it on Sideshow, I realized I need to start collecting Star Wars Hot Toys. And so I paid, almost double to get it as soon as possible. And to have these issues is really disappointing. And I hope I'm not disappointing all of you who are very excited about this figure. I did my initial unboxing and I, dropped some footage of it, and I was super excited because that was very brief, like just a few minutes spent with the figure before I had to leave the house. And I was all excited right off the bat. Now granted, from as soon as I took it out of the box, that one small hip piece had fallen off, which was kind of bugging me. But because it looked like you could plug it back in, I was like, maybe when I spend some more time with it. After spending more time with it, not only could I not get it to plug back in, but the whole waist piece fell apart, which was disappointing. And then at some point in the process, the whole cape separated. So yeah, 7 out of 10 as is, probably 9.5 out of 10 if I can ship this figure back and get a new one. It is just kind of disappointing because this is the second new Hot Toys figure in a row, the first being Commander Cody 2.0, that I've had issues with. And I went like over 40 Hot Toys figures straight, including old ones and new ones that had no issues. And to have two back-to-back that have issues is really disappointing. So yeah, again, I was hoping to do some more dynamic poses. I was going to have his forearms cut off with Obi-Wan in front of him, but I couldn't swap the forearms out. Again, that might be a me issue, but either way, I will keep you folks posted on what happens with this figure in terms of, if and when I get a replacement and how that replacement holds up. I will definitely, pin a comment in the comments just saying that it worked out. And obviously, if the next one I get is a lot more posable, then I'll try that spider pose out. I'll also pose him with Obi-Wan and some other figures. But with that said, I do hope you enjoyed this review. I'm sorry if it was a little more negative than you anticipated. It's a lot more negative than I anticipated. I thought I would sit here ranting and raving about how fantastic this figure was. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. So if you love, new Hot Toys release figure reviews, figure matchups, Lego, Star Wars, and everything in between, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. I release new content every week, and I'd love to have you in the Flip for Figs universe. So until next time, I'll see you later.
When I flip, you flip, we flip.